Hey, what's up? I'm Kirk of Effectatron, and today I'm going to show you how to create this cool rippling water look, this anime style. Now you can actually take the techniques we use and go beyond the anime style and go with like realistic and actually use the information that we're going to generate to drive height fields and stuff like that, so you can make foam and all kinds of things. I just think it looks cute, so it's very fun and satisfying to create this. And the best part about this is it actually responds to your objects. It has this nice rippling effect where it actually like trails and everything like that, and you can come in here and it's just incredibly satisfying to take your object and just drag it around and instantly see that it affects it. So if we come in here and we grab our rock and we want to say, oh, we want another rock right over here, we instantly get that new rock as well as the ripples to go with it, and it can scale and everything is going to react to that accordingly. As it gets closer to other things, you'll see how it connects and stuff like that. So you just instantly get all this like procedural feedback and just this really nice effect. So if you had like something going down a river, this is really great for the coastal stuff and everything like that. Super cool effect, really nice. And this scene is available to download from Gumroad, and there's a bunch of other stuff from Gumroad. I want to thank all you people who have downloaded my stuff. Thank you for the support. Anyone that's given me some money and stuff for some of the free ones or bought some of the paid things, I really appreciate it. That all that support really helps me keep making free content. Speaking of content, that makes me think of the Mind and Motion workshop for Cinema 4D and Redshift that I'm creating. It is going to be an interactive 10-week program where you are going to get live one-on-one feedback from me. You're going to get feedback from your peers. We're going to do live streams throughout the process, as well as the fact that almost every single lesson is very project-based, like my YouTube tutorials are. So you're going to have over 70 projects that you're actually going to start at the beginning and actually finish and have these really cool, amazing looking renders. I'm not just showing you stuff that's like, here's how you do this, and I render it out, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to take what I learned to do it. No, you are going to do it too. Everything that you see is available to you and will be provided to you so you can follow along and do these tutorials and start generating your reel. So whether you're brand new to Cinema 4D and Redshift or whatever, this class is going to be for you, and it's just going to basically help you weed through all of the BS and trying to find through all the tutorials and everything that's available out there. And it's just a condensed, focused, interactive workshop with live feedback and a strong focus on mental health as well throughout it, because personally I've struggled with that, as well. Like imposter syndrome is very real. And if you talk to any artist, I talked to Nick Campbell, EJ from iDesign, all these people, and they all say they still struggle with just thinking they're not good enough because they see other things that are even better and stuff like that. And it's just wild to hear that. So we're going to have interviews from other people as well as guest speakers and stuff that'll teach, as well as just me teaching you all that. I really am excited about it, and I can't wait to get to start working with all of you. So be on the lookout for that. All right, let's get into creating this tutorial. Okay, so let's just start with a plane for our very first thing here. And we'll go ahead and just add a redshift sun and sky here, just so we have some lighting in our scene. Rotate it a bit to kind of get some shadows. I love the new redshift sun and sky. All right, so our plane, what we're going to do is we're just going to type in like 1500 and 1500. And we want to have some segments to this. And the reason we're going to have a bunch of segments to this is because we're going to use vertex mapping to drive this. And the more segments we have, the more vertices we have. So you don't need to go crazy with it, but we'll do like 300 and 300, which looks like super hard to look at. So we're going to just go ahead and just turn that off in our viewport there. So what we want to do is talk about vertex maps. So I want to explain what a vertex map is really quick rather than just show you exactly how to create this. This way you can kind of understand how to apply vertex maps to other things, because they are incredibly powerful and they are something I don't utilize enough. And you can do so much cool stuff with them in combination with fields and stuff. It's wild. So basically, if we take our plane here and we go down here to the vertex paint tool, we can't paint on it. It won't let us. And that's because our geometry is still sort of procedural, because we haven't baked this down to be editable. I don't know if I'm using bake in the right sentence there, but you understand. So we're going to go ahead and hit C and turn that into an editable plane. And now when we draw on this with our paint tool, we have created a red and yellow map that hurts our eyes, but it is really cool. So what this has done is basically, the way you have to think about it is like when we're using, when we're creating nodes, we use like ramps and grayscale maps all the time, where black is given the value of 0 and white is given a value of 1. Same thing with this vertex map, except red is black and yellow is white. So red is 0 and yellow is 1. And everything in between with the feathering and stuff that you can apply is based on that same thing. So you can see here, as we have our brush, it's a little more detailed than just polygon selection, because you kind of have these kind of feathering effects in between. But at the same time, if we come in here and, throw a subdivision, if we were to come in here and make this like 1,000, we'll just do 1, 1, 1, 1, yeah. And then hit that and make that editable, and then use that same tool in Paint, we're going to get a much smoother result. It's going to take longer because we have so many vertices, but we have a nice smoother edge that's not as intense. So hopefully that makes sense. So it's kind of this weird hybrid of not quite a texture map, and but it is related to the surface of your object, but it's also really linked to the geometry of your object. But it's not the same as coming in here and doing a polygon selection, because those are going to be straight up just polygons and that's it. So rather than taking one material, throwing it on there, and one on the rest, we're able to tell it all kinds of information. And rather than just using one material on it and one material on the other part, we can actually tell it to do like elevations and mixtures and things like this, blending materials for sure, but also things like bump map, displacement, all kinds of crazy effects, as well as motion effects and stuff like that. So the vertex maps are really, really powerful, and they're kind of this hard to explain weird hybrid between sort of a texture map and something that's linked to your geometry and a field. It's kind of like that. So if you need to think about it in that way, hopefully that makes sense a little bit. So rather than coming in here and editing it so we can paint a map, we can actually just right-click our plane and start typing in vertex before we make it editable. And we can add in a vertex map on top of it. And now we can have a vertex map and we can paint on it. Except we can't paint on it still. So now we've created a vertex map. Now the weird part about this is, because it's still procedural, we still can't paint on it. But it doesn't matter, because we don't need to paint on it. We're going to paint on it with effects and stuff and our geometry. So we're going to use the vertex map in order to tell Cinema 4D and tell our Redshift material nodes where to apply things. And the cool part is it's incredibly simple to use. If we click our vertex map, you see it opens up our fields tab here. So let's go ahead and just create a sphere. And that brings in our little sphere here. So if you open up this vertex map and just click and drag this sphere in here, you see instantly we get this yellow ring around this. And we also have the ability to come in here and click on our sphere here and actually increase the radius of that ring or decrease it however we want. And we can increase it to about 50, I think would be pretty nice. And as we move this sphere around, we, get this nice yellow thing following it around. Now, by default, if we render this, it's not going to show anything because we don't have any materials hooked up and we don't have any information driving this. So let's go ahead and create a material and tell it, okay, I want to apply one color here and one color there. So open up a shader graph. Boom, I said shader graph, I meant node editor. And you'll notice when I have this button selected, I click that, it creates all my favorite nodes and stuff plugged in, and I show how to do that in the Minded Motion workshop. So be sure to check that out when it comes out. But basically what we want to do is we want to type in C and type in vertex, and we'll get this node called a vertex attribute. Vertex attribute does what you think it would do. It uses the attributes of a vertex map to drive information. So all we need to do is grab this vertex map and drag and drop it right into the attribute name. I don't know why things are so hard to kind of like link together. Like, why not just call this vertex map input or something? I don't know. I'm sure there's other things you can throw in there. So just, yeah. Okay, so now let's grab this material that we've created and put it on our plane. And let's go ahead and open up the render view just so we can see this. pop it over here. And I have all my render previews off so that everything runs faster. Because if you notice, when you have render previews on right now, at least in Redshift, your render is just horrible. So your times are awful. So let's go ahead and solo this so we can see we have black here and white here, which is exactly what we want on our plane. So it automatically changes that red and yellow information to a black and white map, which is perfect for us. So what we can do now is take this information and output into a ramp and then the alt input. And we'll solo this so we can see that. And what we want to do is we actually want to select both of these, hold shift, and we want to change them to step because we're going to kind of use that cell shading type vibe. And we're going to bring that white down a bit, maybe like so. And then we just change our black to this nice kind of crystal clear, ultra clear, hyper clear. I don't know why I'm saying that so much. But this nice blue is really all we're going for. There we go. And so now we obviously have blue, water, where we want it, and white, where we want the foam. Now, it doesn't look very good yet. We don't have any movement and stuff, but it's actually pretty easy to apply. So now everything that we use inside of our vertex map and apply that, it's going to apply and translate to our render. So now we need to start creating sort of more of that watery, liquidy look. So what we need to do is start layering in things inside of our field, and all that information is going to be applied and translated by our materials, so we're going to see the effect. So what we need to do is click and hold it down here, which might say linear field, and we want to go over to where it says shader field and let go of that. And then we want to come down here to where it says shader, twirl this down, and choose noise. And you can see that's going to add a noise across our entire scene. So we're going to click open the noise, and we're going to make something that just looks a little more watery. We're going to choose wavy turbulence, and we're going to scale it way up, like 1,000 or more. And then we're going to increase the low clip a little bit, just so we add some little extra contrast in there. And what we want to do is we'll go back to our vertex map now, and we actually want to switch it off of max, and we want to change it from the blending mode to max to subtract. And now it's going to subtract into our spherical area here. So if we increase this, it's still going to be affected by that noise, which is very cool. So the cool thing is we can come in here to this noise and then go to the animation speed, type in 1, say a loop period of 240 because that's how long our scene is. And now when we hit play, you may notice nothing happens. What we need to do is go back to our vertex map, and down here it says refresh. We need to click frame there. And now when that's checked, we'll see we have this nice kind of a watery effect going. And if we click off of our vertex map, we can see already that this is looking pretty nice. We already kind of have a cool ripple effect going on. So what we can do now is work on kind of that extra ripple where there's like a little gap between the edge of the ripple and the rippling that's happening right around the edge of our rock. And we're going to do that by using a curve. So we click and hold the clamp here and choose curve. And with this, we're going to set this to max. And basically this is just kind of a scalar ramp that's going to allow us to adjust how these things are being applied. And so what we're going to do is we actually want to just go to load preset, and we're going to start with the gauze preset. So double click that and bring that in. And then we're going to slide this in, and we just want to pinch this in real tight. You can see how already that's created like this highlight spot, which is where this is. And so what we want to do now is just change the offset of this. And you can see how we could create that rippling effect just like that. So we can bring it in a bit more. There we go. And we can spread it out and make it a little fatter so there's a little more of that area there. And we can bend this up. Oops, wrong handle. Grab this handle, bend it up. So it's kind of more straight up. And we get more of that band in there that we're looking for. So grab this one, make it kind of go more straight up. So we have a little harder band here. And so now what we want to do is we want to offset this. So we're going to keyframe this offset at 0, frame 1, and we'll go to like frame 48. And we're going to just loop that up to right before it gets too much going on, like right there, 36. And we're going to click that. And then we're going to go into our window and click and hold and go to the F curve. Instead of here, we have the vertex map. We're going to hit H and frame everything. Click and hold to select both of those. Switch those to linear and then go to functions by clicking this little line here. That way it's a constant value. And here we're going to go to track after underneath the functions. And we want to set this to oscillate after. And basically what this is going to do is this is going to make it go out and come back in. It's kind of like ping pong. So we get this ripple-y effect where the wave goes out and then comes back in and then goes back out. Just looking pretty good. So you can see we kind of have these weird edges and stuff going on. And that's partially from our noise, but it's also partially from our vertex map here. So what we can do is let's go into our scene here and just kind of spread this out a little bit so it's just a little less intense of a pure cutoff there. And we might have gotten rid of our loop. No, we're good. We've got some extra water coming in, which I'm not crazy about. So it's kind of a combination of all these things. The ramp with your color, the effect of the curve. There we go. I think that's going to look a little better once we come in here and clean that up a little bit. So we'll come in here and let's increase the X relative scale a bit. And what we need to do now is go back into our, we can increase this a little bit. You can see we kind of just have this kind of blocky look, and I'm not crazy about that. So we're going to go back into our material and our ramp, and we're actually going to, actually apply that to our material here rather than just solo that ramp, which I totally forgot to do. And what we can do is we can kind of start messing around with this and slide it down, and you can see how we can actually adjust that even so in here. And we can actually come in here and even add noise to the edge of this. Oh, that's not how you do that. So if you can't quite figure out So if we can't quite get this isolated in exactly where we want, what we can do is actually go into our ramp here. We'll open this up so you can see. And again, make sure you plug in your ramp. I forgot to earlier. So we have our ramp and we plugged it into the Redshift color material here. And what we can do with this ramp is we can actually adjust how far apart these bands are. So if we adjust our ramp, you'll see if we tighten that up, that's going to give us more of that blue in there. And we can lower that down and get more of that white. And we can kind of increase that gap a little bit there within this, just within this ramp right here. We kind of have this a little blocky kind of look here. I'm not crazy about that. And that's because our ramp's going all the way up to 1. Let's just bring that down and kind of round it out a bit more. And we'll soften it up by lowering our handles here just a bit. Like so. And that's a little dome. And now we should have a little bit softer of edges. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. So now let's go ahead and talk about one thing we need to change about our scene to make it more adaptable. And that's the fact that if we come in here and we hold control and make another sphere, it's not affecting it. So how did I have it set up? Well, the trick is very simple. All you need to do is click and hold this object here and go to a connect tab. Throw our sphere into the connect tab. And then back inside of our vertex map, we're going to put that connect tab in here and delete the sphere out. So now we need to actually adjust the width on this connect tab, which is fine. We can just bring that back up. And now whatever object we want to affect our scene, we just throw into this connect object. And now we instantly get that connect object working in here. So we can see, and we can come in here, we can scale this one up, and it's going to work just as well. So now we need to just work on creating that kind of Ripley decay look. And so Ripley, I did that, like, I've recorded this like 4 times, and I did that alien reference like every time. And it's just an obscure reference. I don't know if anyone understood what I'm talking about. because I didn't do it right, for one. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to add in what is called a decay modifier on top of all this. And we're going to switch this to add because we just want to add that decay on top. So now you may notice that, our water is really, adding on quite a lot. And we can increase the amount of this a bit. And we could even come in here and say like multiply if we wanted to, or just like screen, and it's going to add it on top. But what we're doing here is we're going to say, so now we have that nice decay. So you can see how we've created basically echoing instances of the animation. So that's what the decay is doing. It's saying, do what I just did again and again and again, but kind of leave the space here. That is so incredibly satisfying. I'm pretty happy. But we've lost kind of that rippling effect here. So you can come in here and like lower the amount of the decay a bit. We could tweak the size so it comes back up. We could try different modes, maybe max. So now we still have that kind of ripply look and we still have that decay. So max is probably even better. I am quite pleased with the way this turned out. So now let's talk about how to do that kind of low poly rock look that'll look really nice with the scene really quickly, because there are some things that you may not know. One is you may know that what you need to do when you want to create a low poly rock is you come in here, you add a displacement, hold shift, add a displacer on your object here, go to shading, choose noise. It's going to displace it a bit, maybe come in here, up it a bit, so you kind of have a little more wonkiness to it. And then what we need to do is add a polygon reduction, which is here underneath the connect object area. We just throw our whole connect in there, and now it'll reduce the polygons of anything we throw in there. And you may notice we have this kind of weird sort of half shading going on. It's not that cool low poly look, and that's because of this Fong tag right here. So you can delete the Fong tag, and normally that gives you a nice low poly look, but when you're using a connect object, it doesn't, because the connect object overwrites your Fong tags by default. So you have to come into your connect object, go to Fong mode, and switch it to manual. Now it's going to actually use that information from your object here. And we'll up that to like 95. There we go. So now whatever object we throw in, we'll come in here and we can make another sphere, drag that in here, and we can unfog tag that. And it's going to affect, you can animate things. What we could do is we could make a little boat and drive it around. Oops. We could make a boat and drive it around. We could come right click, go to animation tag, vibrate tag, turn on enable position, maybe up the Y and like, maybe just like 5, and then do like 200, and the Z and the X, frequency 1, rotation. You could rotate your object around if you wanted to. So now we kind of have this just floating, wobbly rock, and we can increase the distance this is traveling. And we kind of have this instantly cool rippling water effect, and it's just following it around. So you could put leaves on there floating along, stuff floating down a river or whatever. Awesome, right? You could have it be static. You could have a boat, like I mentioned, whatever you want, a lily pad, something jumping into the water. You can create a nice splash effect. Very cool. You could come in here and start layering in more things like a delay and freeze and stuff like that if you really want things to get really crazy. I mean, you could come in here and have like a Dragon Ball Z character flying across the water, and you have that kind of like epic zipping across the water so fast you're rippling it even though you're not touching it, because you have it actually interact with it just close enough, because you have that extended range on that, so your object will affect it even without touching it. Pretty cool. So yeah, you could have that same information and use this black and white data to drive like a displacement or something if you wanted to. Come in here, add displace, text map, and then of course we need to come into our plane, right click, render tags, redshift object, geometry, tessellate. And what's going to happen is we're actually going to get that displacement at render time if we want. Man, I didn't even think about the fact that you could make that cool Dragon Ball Z effect. Man, I used to love, this is a side note, we're pretty much done with the tutorial. A little side note, I used to just think that was the coolest thing for so long. Anybody else do that? Like in any video game that had water and like a plane or jet, like Battlefield and stuff like that, it was just like flying over the water was the coolest thing. It's just like as close as you could get to being Goku or something. It's silly. What a great waste of time.